I arrived at my inherited ranch, excited to finally settle in and enjoy the solitude that only 150 acres of untouched land could provide. The air was crisp, the fields stretched endlessly, and the old ranch house stood like a sentinel over generations of family history. I had barely unpacked when the first storm cloud on the horizon wasn't from the weather. It was HOA Karen. Within days of my arrival, she somehow got wind of my move-in and immediately launched into her usual antics. The moment she saw my family unloading the truck, she called the HOA claiming I was violating regulations and that my property had been illegally acquired. I ignored her at first. The law was on my side. But then she escalated. She went a step further. She had somehow put my inherited ranch up for sale without my knowledge. Yes, you read that correctly. HOA Karen had listed my property while I was still moving in, pretending I didn't exist, and promising the land to someone else for a quick profit. I could feel my blood pressure spike, but I reminded myself, patience and strategy always win against someone like her. I contacted my attorney, who confirmed what I already knew. This was illegal. But I didn't just want the law on my side. I wanted her to see the full consequence of her actions. The next day, I drove to the local title office, signed the necessary documents, and officially purchased the very property she had tried to manipulate. Every parcel, every acre, every boundary that Karen tried to claim for herself now legally belonged to me. The following morning, Karen showed up at my gate, her usual scowl in place. "You can't do this," she screamed. "This isn't fair. I had plans for this land." I poured her a cup of coffee, smiled, and said, "I'm afraid fairness doesn't factor into law, Karen. Every inch you tried to sell or claim now belongs to me." She sputtered and fumed, realizing that her attempts to game the system had failed spectacularly. But I wasn't finished. Knowing her, I anticipated she'd attempt to sneak onto the property or send her friends in to inspect it. I strategically locked all the gates, installed motion sensors, and hired a pair of local ranch hands who knew the terrain better than anyone else. Any unauthorized entry would be noticed immediately. True to form, a few days later, she tried to drive through, thinking she could bypass the new security. As her car approached the main gate, my ranch hands intercepted her, calmly but firmly informing her that she had no right to enter. Karen started yelling about neighborly access and emergency rights, but it fell on deaf ears. I had every legal document printed and posted at the entrance. Trespassing was not just discouraged. It was impossible to ignore. I watched from my porch, a subtle smile tugging at my lips, as she eventually turned around in frustration. She attempted to rally the HOA against me, but the board quickly realized she had overstepped, and they quietly backed down. The irony? In trying to undermine me, she had inadvertently ensured my absolute control over the ranch. Weeks later, I walked through the fields, seeing the cows grazing peacefully and the old barns standing tall. Every time I passed the gates, I could see the imprint of her failed scheme. She had wanted to own my inherited land without effort, but the universe and the law had other plans. I installed a few no trespassing signs, not out of fear, but as a gentle reminder that boundaries exist for a reason. The cherry on top? I decided to add a small fence along the property line she had been eyeing, ensuring she could never even approach that section. She tried calling the HOA again, but every time her complaints bounced back. The more she screamed, the more amusing it became. She had literally sold my ranch before I moved in, but now she couldn't even get close to it. As the sun set over the horizon, casting golden hues across my fields, I finally felt a profound sense of triumph. This wasn't just about property, it was about reclaiming control from someone who thrived on entitlement and manipulation. Karen had tried to undermine me from the very start, but the result was a complete reversal. She had given me the motivation to secure every inch of my land, ensuring that nothing she did could ever threaten it again. I poured myself a glass of whiskey that evening, gazing at the horizon. The ranch was mine in every sense, legally and practically, and for the first time in weeks, I felt completely at peace. Karen had tried to play a game, but I had rewritten the rules entirely, 1 acre, 1 barn, and 1 gate at a time.